Hi there. Welcome to my channel. You're here because you want to know how to manage anxiety better. I've been qualified for 25 years as a therapist. That's not a substitute for getting advice from your doctor. Anxiety is a massive problem these days. So you do need to consult with a doctor for specific advice to you if you are very concerned about this. But that being said, obviously I've got years of experience of working with people with anxiety just to help to pass on today. So take this as education and I hope you enjoy the video. So, you've been managing anxiety to some extent. People don't tend to come and look at these sorts of videos unless they realize they've got a really big problem. So we both know that you have been managing your anxiety to greater or lesser effect for quite some time now, probably. And anxiety it's real pain. It's just horrible for people because what tends to happen is that we get used to feeling anxiety. So we sort of start to feel almost like we don't feel normal unless we're anxious. So we get into quite a vicious and complex cycle in terms of the way that we think, the way that we feel, and the way that we behave. And that we've got all of those bodily responses. Obviously, anxiety is massive in terms of bodily responses. That's usually what bothers people the most, along with the worry. But you do find that people who've been managing anxiety for a long time can start to get a bit more specific with their anxiety, can start to manifest a little bit more in an OCD way, and then they're using rituals to help with the management of anxiety, or they're getting a bit more health conscious, a bit more health anxious, too much time spent looking for symptoms, monitoring symptoms that they find, sometimes imagining symptoms that aren't there. Everyone's heard that can be a problem. And social anxiety becomes massive for a lot of people as well. So anxiety is a massive problem. You're here to find out ways to help manage it. And I really hope I can help you. So let's think first of all about two really simple ideas: approach, avoid. Okay, two simple ideas. What they are two kinds of strategy for managing anxiety. So avoiding anxiety, we're all really familiar with this. Okay, so, I'm really worried that if I go to this event, this party, I'm going to feel really anxious and have a terrible time, and it's going to be horrible. I'm not going to be able to cope, and it's nasty, and people are going to not like me, and all those anxious thoughts that might happen. So what do? We avoid. We just don't go to the party. We just don't go to the event. We shrink our world down till it's much smaller, which can lead to depression. So obviously that's a subject for another video. But avoidance is massively common as a strategy to try to help manage anxiety. And the other kind of avoidance can be a bit more subtle. It can be things like, I will go to the cinema, even though I'm massively anxious about it, but I will make sure that I am not in a middle seat. I will be on an aisle seat because I might be anxious about the kind of people I'm sitting next to. I might be anxious that I need a quick escape route should I get a reason to be anxious or start to feel anxious and not be able to handle it. So that kind of avoidance is a bit more subtle. It's a bit more putting something in place. It's a bit more of this kind of safety behavior that I will use in the cinema will keep me safe and will make sure that I can go and engage in the event. And lots of people get to that stage and they can make it work for them. And I'm not here to criticize anyone who uses those sorts of strategies. Another similar strategy is taking water or a phone. Everyone's got them these days, or some kind of prop. So if I'm there and I start to feel anxious, that's fine. I will just drink my water. As long as I've got water with me, I know I can simmer down perhaps those throat feelings that I get, those tensions, which will really help me, and then I'll be fine. Or as long as I've got my phone, I can make sure that I'll just start, pretending to do something that's helpful on the phone. So all of these are slightly less avoidant than the whole, I'm not going to go at all. But we've got to ask ourselves whether they eventually make the problem worse. So that's the avoid way of trying to manage anxiety. Now, on the other hand, we have the approach way of trying to manage anxiety. So this is, it's really simple. Avoid is when you don't do something to try and manage your anxiety. But avoid the approach strategies when you do something to try to manage anxiety. So it's a little bit more proactive, and it can involve things like checking and rechecking. So I'm at work and I've got to send an email to the manager, and I'm really concerned that I might make a mistake, I might make something stupid, and I don't want to handle that. That will make me feel really anxious. If I worry for the rest of the day, oh no, I must have looked really stupid, I better check that email several times before I send it. So that's a typical example of something that people do to approach the problem of anxiety with an approach strategy. Similar to asking for lots of people's opinion, or just one other person's opinion. I'm going to keep asking you your opinion on stuff because I don't feel confident in my own choice, and getting a second opinion will help to alleviate my anxiety. Another one can be taking a long time over something. So here I am with a choice to make. I've got to buy a birthday card. So instead of going in, picking up 3 or 4 and choosing the one that seems best for that person based on what I know about them and the price and the colours or whatever, I'm going to look at probably 25, maybe more, and then I'm going to go to a different part of the shop in case there's some over there that I missed that are, differently themed, so they've been grouped somewhere else. And then perhaps I will even, in fact, go to another shop because I can't be sure that this shop has got the right choice. There might be the perfect one somewhere else. So that's doing a lot of stuff and taking a lot of time over doing something. And again, people live with these choices. They manage their anxiety by doing all of these things. But I suppose what I wanted to draw your attention to in this video is that actually these are not just quirks of your behavior. You could say to me, oh yeah, I'm just somebody who really takes a long time over choosing birthday cards, and I see that as being, a really nice way to show that I care. I don't want to make the mistake and choose the wrong thing and not do a really good job, so I'm going to put in extra effort, and that will mean that I care. How about you think of it as this is a problem that I have with anxiety, as opposed to this is a quirk of my personality? It's really easy to sink deeper into things that we think are just quirks of our personality. And all these little techniques like avoidance and extra checking and extra carefulness, what if they're making the problem worse? So let's boil this down to one thing. When you're doing these things, what you are trying to do is make life more certain. I can't be certain that my email is going to be good enough or perfect, so I'm going to check and check and check and check and check. I can't be certain that this card is the right card. I'm going to check and check and check. So this is you checking massively in the pursuit of being certain. But you know what? Life ain't certain. It can't be. It can't ever be. And I want you to think about this idea, because if we're looking at uncertainty as a problem in life, which of course we are, we've got 2 ways of trying to deal with that problem. So on the one hand, you could approach this problem with, okay, life isn't certain and I don't like it, so therefore I am going to increase my certainty. I'm going to do all sorts of things that will help me to be more certain. That's one strategy. The other alternative with life being uncertain is I'm going to increase my ability to cope with and to get comfortable with uncertainty. Well, those are the only 2 ways you can go with this. Life is uncertain. So the choice that you make massively depends on the experiences that you've had and your intention towards your trying to get comfortable with uncertainty. If you believe that life should be certain, of course you're going to want to make everything more certain. But you know what? That's led you to anxiety up to now. That's exactly where that has got you. Trying to make life more certain means that you will always find a dozen, a trillion, billion things that you can work at, tweak, try harder with to make things more certain. And in the process, you're going to get into that real fix, which is anxiety just taking over and feeling like it's consuming you. Because one of the outcomes of anxiety is massive, massive exhaustion. And that's because of all the, thinking ahead and worrying and trying to figure stuff out that we do when we're anxious. So if you could manage your anxiety by kind of going in there at that uncertainty level and deciding to adopt that, I am going to practice living with uncertainty a bit more. Because every time I try to make things more certain, and every time I follow habits mindlessly, with ironically lots of mindful activity going on as well, our minds are full of trying to be mindless about what we're doing. Every time I try to do that, I end up in more knots. I end up completely anxious. So how about I accept that these quirks that I've been doing are not me managing anxiety. These quirks that I am doing are me, I suppose, feeding into the system that has increased the anxiety. So if I want to reduce the anxiety, then I had better not feed into these things anymore. And at least practice not doing that. So I need to increase my comfort with uncertainty. How do I do that? It's really hard, isn't it? I mean, there's no way that you could suddenly tomorrow go and do a load of things that show how comfortable you are with uncertainty. But there might be little things. You know, I really take a lot of trouble every time I make drinks for the office, and I make sure that I write a list, and I remember that, you know, Mary has 1 sugar, Julie has 2 sugars, and Tim has no sugars. And I make sure that I've got my list and I can check it off as I go. And then I can be really certain that when I deliver them their drink, they'll be really pleased. I'll get it right. I can be certain of getting it right. And it's that certainty that's appealing for the anxious person. It's not so much the fear of criticism or the perfectionism, although that can be a part of it. Some people do have those sort of comorbid problems, if you like. It sounds a bit serious, but these kind of co-occurring difficulties with anxiety, yeah, that happens. But actually, if we go on this basis that anxiety is a problem of tolerating uncertainty, how can I perhaps stretch it a little bit? You know, that thing I was saying earlier, that your world will get smaller. How can I stretch it? How can I dabble with the idea that I don't need to be certain about everything? Start with the small things. So do the tea, coffee round, or whatever you call it at work next time. Don't make the list. Just, you know, you've done it 100 times anyway. You know what they all take. Sugars, no sugars, coffee, tea, whatever. You probably know it anyway. But how about you just practice letting go of small little gestures that you make in the direction of, I must make sure I'm certain about everything. So little by little, you'll get better at tolerating that uncertainty. And that is key to getting on top of an anxiety problem. So I hope you found this helpful, thinking about your relationship to uncertainty. That's what this is all about. How to manage anxiety by looking at the things that you do that you think manage it, but actually make it worse. They maintain the problem of anxiety. So what I would suggest is that you like this video, subscribe if you want to, but click on to get my free PDF. I've got a free handout which is full of ideas as to how to soothe yourself. And the reason that's important is because when we're practicing anything to help us with anxiety, it sends us into that stress state. It's going to be anxiety provoking, trying to deal with anxiety. That's the real problem we have here. It's a massive vicious cycle. So what you need is some really useful and spot on tips to help you to bring stress levels down. So that's on my free PDF. So please do click and get that, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.